Hi, I'm Daniel Madison, and in this video I'm going to teach you this. So in this video I'm going to dedicate quite a lot of time to teaching you that move that you just saw. It is a sleight of hand technique for switching playing cards at the card table, hidden in the simple action of flicking a card across a table. Now, as with all sleight of hand techniques, especially techniques used for gambling, the less you touch the playing cards, the better. So this move itself was designed strictly for card games, whereas you push a playing card away that you do not want or a card that's been discarded. You can see from the execution and the demonstration that I give in this video how clean it is. You only really apparently touch the card with one finger while you flick that card across the table, and in that action you switch one card for another. It is a relatively easy move to execute and learn, and it is visually deceptive as. Just before we move over to the card table, I want to give a shout out to my friend Jeff Lianza. The animation that you saw at the beginning of this video where the crow flies and lands on the M, that was animated by Jeff 8 years ago for the Madison Players trailer. It never made it into the cut, and I've always wanted to use that video. I stumbled across it earlier on today and thought, yes, I'm going to use that video. So thank you, Jeff Lianza. And for people who don't know who he is, he's responsible for a lot of the artwork that you see in my decks, including My Face is the King of Diamonds that you see today. Find a link to him in this video description, but right now we're going to head over to the card table and learn Muk Shun. So Muk Shun is a card switch. It is switching one card for another on a surface, on a card table, and it is hidden in the action of pushing a card away from yourself or towards somebody. We'll get into the performances and what this can be used for shortly, but right now I want to start this video with a very basic exposure of the move. So we're going to switch the King of Diamonds from the Nine of Clubs. The Nine of Clubs is in a palm, and in the action of pushing the King of Diamonds away, the card is switched. Now obviously you can see the switch because the cards are face up. That's just for the purposes of this explanation. I would never perform this as a color change, as a visual color change like that, because it basically, you can't hide the deception. The deception is too obvious. There's no question as to where that King of Diamonds is right now. Obviously it's under this hand. Now when you do this with face down cards, you've got plenty of time to hide the deception. So the King of Diamonds is here. I have the Nine of Clubs palmed, and I'm going to push that King of Diamonds away. Nobody knows that card switched yet. Nobody suspects it, and I've got plenty of time to get rid of the King of Diamonds in however way I choose. That's one of the beautiful things about this move, is you don't need to rush through it, and you barely touch this card, so nobody suspects at this point that a switch was made to the King for the 9. Now the move itself and the switch, it really does come down to how you're going to perform it and what you're going to use the switch for. Let's take a look at a more intricate way of executing this switch. Now, I'm going to give the deck to somebody, and as I'm talking and as I'm handling the playing cards, the Nine of Clubs is just going to get placed into a modified Tenkai palm. Like, that wasn't really even a move. I didn't have to try to manipulate that card into a palm. It just happens. It happens on a very non-moment, on a very dead moment. I just simply push the 9 and take it between the palm here and the thumb here, and it sits in a very relaxed palm. It's very much like a Tenkai palm, but it's a little bit more relaxed and a little bit less definite. It doesn't matter if it ends up like this or like this, as long as it's in a position where my hand is very comfortable. Now, angles, yes, it is angle sensitive from this side, because if somebody sat here and they're looking here, they're going to see this. This is the best way that I like to perform it with the modified Tenkai palm. You can do this with a very, very basic flat palm, finger palm should I say, which looks like this. So from every angle it's hidden. I'm not a fan of sitting at a card table like this. It kind of screams out to me that something's going on, that something's in those hands. But for magicians and for cardmen, if you really want to hide that card, that's a good way of doing it. It's very basic. It doesn't even need teaching. It's in the hand and the fingers fold in. Hands are very relaxed at the table, so you can do it from the Tenkai, modified Tenkai, or a simple finger palm. You can do it with the gambler's palm as well, gambler's flat palm, which looks like this, gripped between the pinky and the thumb, just like this, with a flat hand. I prefer the Tenkai, but I guess it depends on what you do in the trick, how you're doing this trick, how you're doing the move, should I say, and what your surroundings are, what your angles are. Right now, though, I'm going to teach it with the modified Tenkai. So the card is taken into a Tenkai palm. As on a non-moment, the deck is given to a spectator. They're going to deal me any playing card from the deck. Doesn't matter if they're looking at the cards, doesn't matter what the card is for now. This is just a basic explanation of how you would execute the trick. So they deal a card, and just to show you the switch, we're going to put it face up. They deal me a card. Now I instruct them, I tell them deal me a card, so they deal it to me on the surface. Now I'm going to switch it in a moment where I say, I don't want it to be near me, so keep it by you, make sure I don't touch it. That's when the switch is executed. Now it's too close to me and I don't want them to think I've switched it, so I push it back to them, and at this point I've got all the time in the world to clean up the king and to ask them to put their finger on it to make sure I can't touch it. So one of the nice things about this switch is how innocent you're pretending to be and how innocent you're coming across. The 9 of clubs is here. Don't let me near the card. I don't want to touch it. I don't want you to think I'm going to try and switch it or anything. And from that moment, all I've done is this. In their mind, all I've done is push it away. How could it have possibly switched? And especially once you do the switch, if you now say, I don't want to touch it, in fact, put your hand on top of it, like cover it up so that I can't switch it, and then the switch is executed. Now, how you use this in a trick is really up to you. I use it for so many things. Right now, let's look at a few different ways of executing the move. That's obviously with the Tenkai. So the Tenkai is here. The card is dealt to me. And when I go over to push, the move looks like this. The fingers are pushing it away. I'm not putting my hand down and pushing it and then lifting off. I need to make a point that it's just being flicked away. Now, if you watch this hand, if it does that move without this carding, watch what happens to the hand. The fingers come inside. The fingers go inwards to go outwards. They have to, obviously. They go in and out. Now, put a card in my hand. I don't have to do any moves that look unnatural because the fingers are coming in anyway to push that card. So what happens here, the fingers come in, finger 1 goes on top of this card so that it's clipped like this. So I've got a definite grip on it, and all I'm going to do is throw this card over the top of this card like this. I'm just going to throw it forward and it's flicking from that grip. So it's here, and finger 1 goes on top, all the fingers go underneath, and now I'm just going to do this. Now when you do that fast, you can lose the flick sound. I like the flick sound because it sounds like you've actually flicked this card when really you haven't. The sound's coming from here. So if you do that face down, the king of diamonds is here. It sounds like I flicked this card, but I didn't. I'm doing this. So Tenkai is here, finger 1 on top. As the fingers come back, flick it forward. Now that's the basic switch. I'm just throwing a card at the person, at the participant. I'm just throwing a card across the table. Now the hand curls in, finger 1 grips the card is thrown forward. Notice how my hand is naturally now covering this card. I'm not trying to do that. That's just what this move looks like. When you do this, that is the natural position and natural movement of the hand. So I'm not trying to hide this card. It's happening very naturally. So the card here, thrown forward, the hand is open already. Now, if I was to do this in general with any object at a table, I would not do this. I would not keep my hand in the air. Like a very natural thing to do after that is to put your hands back down, because my hand's at the table, I flick it forward and the hand goes down. In fact, the hand barely leaves the table in the switch anyway. It lifts up just enough to allow this card an easy release. So like this, it lifts up about maybe 1 or 2 centimeters and then goes back down. Now, if I do it slowly, then I'm kind of drawing attention to the fact that I'm hiding something. I just actually threw the card off of the table. Once this has gone forward, this hand comes down, and it has to be done in the most natural timing and manner possible. Now, to do this, it's kind of a counterintuitive thing to not try to switch the card. It sounds backwards, but to switch the card, you have to not think about switching the card, because when you think about it, you start doing unnatural moves, and you can complicate things for yourself. The best way to be natural with this is treat it as if the switch isn't even happening. Just like that. I'm not trying anything. This move is barely even a deceptive technique or a sleight of hand technique. It is a deceptive method. It's barely a sleight of hand technique, because there's not much going on other than me throwing a card, and my hand's now naturally covering this, and I'm not in a rush to get rid of the card once I switched it. I just simply come back to my position. I start here, my hands are here where I'm starting right here. I do the move, the hand comes back to its starting position. So nothing unnatural has happened whatsoever. So that's the first grip is the Tenkai, like this. Now let's look at this. It's essentially the same thing in the finger palm. It's essentially the same thing. I'm going to throw the card a little bit different though. The card is gripped between the thumb and the pinky in a gambler's flat palm, but with the fingers over it to hide. Now I can do things like I can open my hands and keep that card palmed. I don't know why I would do that, but it shows how much freedom you've got. Now this also exposes how I'm able to throw this card without dropping it, because if it was just held in place by those fingers, as soon as I open it's going to fall, but it's not. It's here and here, and it is the projection of the hand, the movement forward, that's going to thrust this card forward. I am definitely throwing the card now. I'm not kind of flicking it with my finger, I'm just throwing the card, and that's why I prefer the Tenkai, because you've got more control over the movement of this card. When you do it with a finger palm, you've got to really like throw it, and it doesn't go as far as it probably should. You also lose that flick sound. Now to take this a few steps further, we can actually execute this with more than one playing card. So exactly the same, you're going to palm. For this example, we're going to do a blackjack switch. I'm going to have the blackjack hand palmed. We'll do the flat palm to start with to show you the spread. So I get dealt 2 playing cards that are no good. I push them away, and that's 2 cards switched for 2. Exactly the same when I come back with these playing cards. This does bring with it a few complications. These cards on the table, when they get dealt to you, they need to be close together. If they're like this, it's not going to work. They need to be on top of each other like this. They can be separated a little bit, but you have to bear in mind however far apart they are, the only way you're going to be able to hide that is with your hand afterwards. So ideally they need to be able to hide it underneath your hand afterwards. So if somebody deals you 2 cards and they're separate, you can just push them together. You can just push them together as you're talking about them, or just line them up and then flick them away. And it's exactly the same with stealing them. You're just going to put your hand and pull down. So if these are dealt face up, and also if you want to buy yourself more time with this, with switching 2 cards for 2 cards, you want to get into the Tenkai, and these are going to be dealt face up. Now if they're separate, here's a really good way of making this move easier for yourself. You can take these cards, you can show them around 9 and king. Now I don't want them, and you push them back face down, and that's when the switch happens. Obviously I'm going to switch the jack of spades for the 9 of clubs. I'm going to do the move twice. One of them is going to be the switch, one of them is going to be a real shun, a real move. So there's the switch and there's the real move. So now the deception is even more hidden. So they deal me an ace and a jack, the 9 is here. I do the switch, and then I do a real push. The real push delays the response time, and it also makes the deceptor switch look completely fair. So once again, the 9 of clubs, switch, and then reel. If I was doing a series of switches, I would do something like this, push this card away, I would then pick it up and execute a Macmillan switch, and I've still got the card in a palm. Now, picking a card up from the table when it's hidden like this isn't always easy. It just, sometimes it happens naturally, more naturally than others, but the beauty of having the edge of the table, when I go back, it just flicks up and I can palm it very easily. So there's the first Tenkai switch, and then a Macmillan switch to end off with. It's just an example of what you can do instead of ditching the card. Another interesting thing that I like to do with this is the king I would put here, the 9 of clubs I would put on top of the deck. I would then push the king towards the person as they're turning it over to reveal the 9. I would then go over and turn the top card over, which is a king. Now this is very, very easy. As I'm putting the king on top of the deck, it's actually just going straight into Tenkai, so it doesn't hit the top of the deck, it just looks like it's right here. So 9 goes down, king goes on the deck, push the 9 forward, pick it up at the edge of the table, and then come over here and pretend to take it off the top of the deck. So once again, king goes down. So once again, the king goes down and 9 goes on top of the deck. Push the king forward, they turn it over to have a look, I turn the top card over, and you can see that the cards have switched. On the rare occasion that I hang out with other magicians and you're all jamming with playing cards, here's a trick that I really like to do. I ask them to deal me their 9 of clubs face up, I push it over to them and ask them to put their finger on the top. I then go to my deck or to my pocket and pull out the 9 of clubs from their deck and ask them to turn over their 9 of clubs, and the back design has changed. Depending on the person you're showing this to, depending on how skeptical they are, it can help to do the switch as soon as you can. Now, when I say this, I don't mean fast. Don't rush the switch. If you do it too fast, it's very suspicious. You have to have a really nice, smooth timing for the switch. What I mean by sooner is you want to do that switch as soon as that card hits the table. So let's pretend this is being dealt to me. So it gets dealt, and straight away I'm going to push it away. As soon as it lands, I'm going to push it away and say, no, don't put the card near me. And what that does is it makes it seem so much more impossible that that could have been a switch because of how quickly it happened. Sometimes the longer the card is there before the switch, the more you'll find that people are staring at that card waiting for something to happen. If you do the move sooner, you've already executed everything and you can chill out and take your time and sit back. That was Muk-Shun. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for learning the move. If you perform it anywhere and you catch it on film, tag me in it, show it to me. I'd love to see how you perform the move. I'll be back soon to teach you more deceptive methods. I am Daniel Madison, and I will see you next time.